Welcome all. Today, we are unpacking a seriously high-tension engineering breakdown. We are going to look at how a foundational, absolutely critical piece of legacy software was completely transformed from the ground up. We're talking about moving from a highly vulnerable state to completely memory-safe execution and doing it all while racing against a 72-hour clock. This is the story of the Port Mortem 2026 Hackathon submission that successfully ported cJSON to Rust. Okay, let's just dive right in. Act 1. The silent threat. So what's the root cause of this problem? Well, it's totally structural. The original cJSON architecture relied heavily on these 64-bit raw pointers that were just scattered everywhere across the heap. Every single time a new JSON node was created, it triggered a manual memory allocation. And you know what that means? It created a total nightmare of manual lifetime tracking that would keep, honestly, any developer up at night. Take CVE-2023.50471 for example. In the legacy C code, an attacker could literally just send a deeply nested JSON document straight to the parser. Because the parser didn't have any depth limiting, it would recursively exhaust the stack, corrupt the heap, and just crash the system entirely. That is a critical denial of service vulnerability. This brings us to what's known as the Port Mortem mandate. The challenge this team took on was frankly audacious. They had exactly 72 hours to execute a complete memory-safe rewrite of this parser in Rust. They were mandated to enforce a strict zero unsafe code policy. But here is the real kicker. They had to maintain 100% C-ABI compatibility. Moving on to Act 2, the architectural pivot. So instead of fighting against these scattered pointers, the team made a brilliant pivot. They utilized an arena bat index tree in Rust. They completely swapped out those fat 64-bit pointers for sleek 32-bit indices that pointed to a single contiguous memory arena. This simple change took the memory overhead from 52 bytes per node down to 45 bytes. But even more importantly, a depth-first traversal of the tree suddenly became a sequential memory walk. That single change dropped the L1 cache miss rate by 75%. And because of this whole arena architecture, the team could apply this beautifully strict compile time constraint right at the top of their core modules. Literally forbid unsafe code. By binding the identity of the node directly to the lifetime of the arena itself, Rust Sparrow Checker just goes to work. It makes traditional memory corruptions, things like double freeze, use after freeze, and buffer overflows, literally impossible to even compile. Act 3. The empirical proof. Now, if you really want to know if a piece of system software is truly bulletproof, what do? You fuzz it. The team built a differential fuzzing pipeline, bombarding both the C and Rust implementations with malformed payloads for 24 continuous hours. We're talking 2.3 million executions here. And here's the absolute mic drop moment. The legacy C implementation suffered 205 unique crashes. Core dumps, segmentation faults, heap corruptions, the whole shebang. The Rust implementation? Zero. Absolutely zero. It gracefully rejected bad input every single time. But what about behavioral equivalence, right? Well, this number right here is incredibly important. 72. The original legacy C test suite contained exactly 72 compatible functional tests. The team literally took that unmodified legacy test suite, pointed it directly at the new Rust binary, and exactly 72 out of 72 tests passed perfectly. When we look at the vulnerabilities they eliminated, you can really see how systematic this was. Use after free, handled instantly by arena lifetime bounds. Buffer overflows, stopped cold by runtime bounce checking. But they also went in and fixed deep logic bugs. Remember that deep nesting DOS attack we talked about a minute ago? Fixed by just enforcing a strict depth limit. They even solved issue 838. That was this nasty silent data corruption bug where the C parser actually truncated floating point numbers, meaning financial systems were literally losing precision. The Rust standard library's isolamir algorithm passed those directly into 64-bit floats, preserving total accuracy. Okay, these benchmarks basically destroy the conventional wisdom that memory safety has to impose some kind of runtime penalty. Passing a 1 megabyte JSON file was actually 1.4% faster in Rust. But look at the delete operation. Because the Rust implementation uses an arena, it doesn't need to sit there and recursively chase pointers to free thousands of individual nodes. When the arena drops, the entire tree is freed in a single operation. That makes deletion 15 times or 1400% faster. Overall, the safe Rust code is nearly 8% faster than highly optimized C code. No way around it. That's incredibly impressive. And for any IoT or embedded systems engineers tuning in, this memory reduction is an absolute game changer. By shifting from 64-bit pointers down to 32-bit indices, the team reduced the structural memory overhead by 13.5%. To put that into perspective, if you were deploying onto a heavily constrained embedded device with maybe 256 kilobytes of RAM, saving 70 kilobytes simply by swapping out your parser is massive. It can literally mean the difference between a feasible deployment and an impossible one. Finally, Act 5, the future of systems. The team's open source pedigree really shines through when you look at the rubrics they explicitly conquered during this event. They didn't just write code, they engineered undeniable proof. They claimed the bug catcher bounty by proving their parser could gracefully handle a tiny 17-byte malformed payload that instantly code dumped the C version. They proved the zero unsafe mandate with their contiguous arena architecture. And they absolutely nailed legacy compatibility by proving their C-ABI layer passed 100% of the original tests. So if a foundational legacy C library can be safely modernized in just 72 hours without breaking a single downstream dependency, what is stopping you from modernizing yours? Thank you so much for joining us and keep building safely.